Today we are going to talk about what to do when, God forbid, life throws you a curveball like COVID-19 or a really bad case of allergies, and you just are in no shape at all to be the badass that you normally are. So today we're going to talk about some strategies to help you when you can't juggle it all. Welcome back, friends. If you're new here, I'm Jen, artist, entrepreneur, and kind of all-around single mom badass. Okay, I added the badass part. My goal on this channel is to help other single parents, specifically other single moms, to realize and to see that you can build a life that you love despite the fact that you're doing it all by yourself. It's totally possible. I also like to bring you behind the scenes with my 3 businesses so that you can see how I manage to juggle everything I've got going on in my life. So it's part education, part vlog. I hope you enjoy it and stick around to watch. But today we are talking about what do you do when you come down with a sickness and you can't juggle it all because you just don't have the energy, you don't feel good, it's just not gonna happen. We're gonna talk about this in 2 phases. First is pre-planning, because here's the thing, we are all human beings, we are going to get sick. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when, right? So for pre-planning, there are 2 strategies that I use. One, when it comes to work and business stuff, I try very, very hard to stay about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So a big part of my businesses requires me to do a lot of social media posting and marketing. I try to make sure that all of that is scheduled at least 2 weeks in advance. If I can schedule a month in advance, I absolutely will. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't go in and manually add content on a whim, because I absolutely do. Because sometimes I see something that I want to share, or I just have an idea that I want to share, or there's something just comes up. So I absolutely add stuff into that pre-scheduled content pretty regularly, but with just a portion of my content that's going to be going out pre-scheduled, it takes a giant load off of my shoulders. So if I have a crazy day and I can't be on social media at all, that's okay, because the stuff that needs to go out will. And I don't have to babysit it. And I can get on and respond to comments and things when I have time. I also try to plan out my YouTube videos about a month in advance. They may not get shot a month in advance, but they get planned about a month. I stay about a month ahead of planning. That way, there's not a question of, oh my gosh, what am I even gonna film today? Now, there are days that happens because the plan just doesn't feel right. I'm a grown woman, I can do that, right? Like, I can change anything that I plan ahead of time. But if I have things planned ahead of time, at least I'm not sitting at zero with no idea what I'm gonna do and floating around in the ether, right? The other thing that I make sure that I always plan ahead is food. Now, I know maybe that seems silly, but here's the thing. I don't know about you, but the thing that I dread day in and day out is that I have to come up with another freaking meal to feed these children, right? It seems so silly. Whoever thought that the worst part about being a grown-up was having to figure out what you're gonna feed people every day? As frustrating as it is to try to figure out what you're gonna feed people when you feel fine, it's so much harder when you're sick and the last thing you wanna do is stand over the stove, right? So I try to make sure that we always have at least a few simple meals in the house that either the kids can make or that are kind of dummy proof. For instance, if I'm making a meal in the crock pot today, I'll put the ingredients in the crock pot that I'm gonna make, but I'll also double those ingredients. And I will take the second half of the ingredients and put them in a Ziploc bag and label them and stick them in the freezer. So the next time I want to make that meal, it's dump and go. I also do that with casseroles and lasagnas and things like that. A lot of times if I'm going to cook something like a lasagna, because a lasagna takes a good hour to make, I'll make it like on a Saturday or Sunday, and I'm going to make 2 of them. Why? Because it takes the same amount of time to make 2 lasagnas as it does to make 1 lasagna. And the second one can go in the freezer. So then when I'm sick or don't feel well, I can pull that lasagna out, stick it in the oven, and walk away for an hour. You could also buy freezer lasagnas or whatever. I personally just don't care for them. I'd rather have my own homemade lasagna. I guess I'm a lasagna snob. Whatever. It is what it is, and it works for my family. Having simple little meals around the house, like cans of soup that the kids can warm up in the microwave, or something in the freezer that you can throw in the crock pot or throw in the oven and walk away from so you don't have to slave over the stove, is going to save your life when you're sick. And you don't need a lot of those. Like a lasagna, those kids can eat a lasagna all week long. I need one meal. At least theoretically, right? So the second half of this is obviously when disaster strikes. So say you come down with COVID. I'm hearing that most people are sick with it for about 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks to not be able to get out of bed or barely be able to get out of bed is disastrous for most of us, right? Because we don't have time to be sick. I don't have time to be sick for sure. I doubt you do either. So there's a couple of steps we're going to take. Number one, we're going to triage. This is what they do at the hospital. When you go into the ER, they assess the absolute worst patients first, and those are who get treated. You're going to do the same thing with your life and your businesses, assuming you have businesses. The tasks that absolutely cannot go without being done for a week, those are the ones you're going to find a way, come hell or high water, to get accomplished. And hopefully that's only 1 or 2 things, because you're not going to be able to do everything you normally do if you're sick. Number 2, you are going to delegate tasks. Now, this again requires a little bit of pre-planning, but I don't care if your kid is 4 years old, they can load the dishwasher and put soap in it and turn it on. Oh yeah, they can. A 4-year-old can absolutely load the dishwasher. She might not do it perfect, might not be the way you do it, but they'll have dishes to eat off of, right? That's what matters. And a 4 or 5-year-old can absolutely shove laundry into the washing machine and turn it on, and move it to the dryer and turn it on. Teach your children to do those 2 basic tasks as early as you possibly can, because I promise you, when you are laid up in bed with the flu or something like that, it will be a godsend to know that you can say to your 8-year-old, I need you to gather up the laundry that you and your brother need and put it in the washing machine. Who cares if it doesn't get folded? If it gets washed and dried, isn't that enough if you're sick? They can pull clean clothes out of a clean clothes laundry basket. If a kid needs a school uniform, they need a school uniform, and I'd rather it be clean and wrinkled than filthy. Wouldn't you? The third is ask for help. Now, I'm going to be real with you. I am terrible about this. Asking for help is literally the hardest thing in the world for me, because it makes me feel like I'm weak. It makes me feel like I should be able to do this. I should be able to handle this. But you know what? I am a human being. I am not Superwoman, as much as I wish I was, as much as I would like to believe that I am. I absolutely cannot possibly always do it all. Ask for help. Very few of us live completely in a vacuum with no family and no friends around. And if you don't have any friends or family around, girl, you got to make yourself some friends. Do not be afraid to call somebody and say, hey, I can't get out of bed. Can you bring me some medicine? If there is no one in your life that you can make a phone call to that wouldn't do that for you, you need to reevaluate your relationships in your life, for one. But do not be afraid to ask for help. It always makes me feel weak to ask for help, but the truth is, asking for help is the strongest thing you can do, because it's being vulnerable and saying to someone else, I can't do this. And that's hard, okay? It's hard. I'm usually really good about being vulnerable, but for some reason, asking for help is so much more difficult for me than any other kind of vulnerability. But find a way to do it. And the fourth thing is you have got to rest. You have got to allow yourself to rest. Because if you don't, you aren't going to get better fast. You're going to get better much, much slower. Allowing yourself to rest is the fastest way to get back on your feet and back to being the badass that you normally are. So those are my tips. I hope they're helpful. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure to drop a comment below, like and subscribe. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day.